Bennett Rea. I recently took a 3-week trip to the Gambia, a tiny country in the west of Africa, surrounded on 3 sides by Senegal. It is a country very unlike the United States. The majority of the country lives in abject poverty. Corrugated tin is used for hut construction. Sticks and branches solidify roofs. Cows and chickens amble through 4-star hotels. It is a world entirely different from ours. According to the U.S. Department of State website, the average employed Gambian earns about 50 dollars per day. That is a little under $2 US. Not per hour, per day. Many villages do not have running water or electricity, and education is not a foregone conclusion as it is here. Yet, they call the Gambia the Smiling Coast, and I knew immediately when I entered the country why this was so. The people there are friendly. The people there are happy. Despite the poverty and despite the struggle to subsist every single day, they are happy. Nearly every Gambian greeted me as I walked off the ferry onto the bustling streets. Nearly everyone smiled. Nearly everyone smiled at everyone. The realization I came to from my experience is that happiness is not a 21st century or indeed American invention. Too many people think of it as a concept that really only applies to our modern society. But many Gambians do not have running water, electricity, grocery stores, or even a house. Yet they remain happy. And if people could be happy without so many of the things that are commonplace for us as Americans today, then happiness cannot truly come from things. It cannot come from technology. It cannot come from bigger houses, faster cars, traveling the world, or winning the lottery. In fact, much of the time, these things keep us pursuing an artificial, illusory happiness based in consumption. Really, we must only rid ourselves of that futile pursuit to see that happiness is in simplicity. This simplicity allows human beings to return to the basics, other people. Happiness must be derived from our genuine connections with each other, which can only fully be realized when we embrace simplicity. Otherwise, our modern possessions will keep us grasping at an unreachable mirage of happiness on some distant horizon. Recent surveys have found that happiness levels for those on the Forbes 400 list, the list of the richest people in the world, were the same as those of the Maasai herding tribesmen of East Africa. The Maasai do not even have running water, yet they are just as happy as Bill Gates. How can this be? How can one live in destitute poverty, much worse than anything you could see in this country, and be just as happy as one who can purchase anything in the entire world in the blink of an eye? Another finding on happiness came from an independent research group in Britain, and they found that Costa Rica was actually the happiest country in the world, followed by countries such as Vietnam and Jamaica. The United States, 114th. In fact, most of the developed countries ranked lower on the list, suggesting that technology and the more industry that a country has, the less happy its citizens are. So what do the Gambians, the Maasai, and the Costa Ricans share that we do not? They don't have much. So their happiness is found in their interactions with each other. It is the way human beings live in numerous countries all over the world. In America, we have replaced that genuine human connection and communication with electronic stimuli and fake conversation to the point where authenticity is no longer the norm. Technological progress in terms of telephones, television, and the internet has drawn us away from people. Sure, sometimes you gather around the TV with friends, and yeah, the internet and telephones can be helpful for keeping in touch with people from far away. But how often do people sit in a chair staring at a computer instead of going out to interact with others? How often do you text instead of speak in person? How often do you watch TV alone or put on your iPod while walking around campus? The New York Times printed an article last year covering a study in which researchers were trying to calculate how much time Americans spend each day looking at advertisements. And the study was interesting in its own right for that calculation. But it was something else they found that really disturbed me. They found that American adults spend 8 hours every day looking at screens. 8 hours. A third of the day looking at computer screens, TV screens, GPS screens, cell phone screens. What does that say about us as a society? How connected are we to screens? And the bigger question is, how much less connected are we to other people because of that? Now, I'm not suggesting that everyone burn their televisions, delete their Facebook, and stomp on their cell phones. I don't expect people to wholly reject technology and move to a cabin in Montana. But it is paramount to have an awareness that the things that consume our lives today have not always existed. People used to consume our time, not computers. What do Gambians do in their free time? They don't set other human beings at a distance by relegating themselves to screens for hours upon hours. They interact, they communicate, they connect with each other. There are very few distractions like those that plague America's societal landscape. To better know happiness, we must go beyond the distractions. We must go beyond pursuing the things that consume our time needlessly. We must stop deluding ourselves into thinking that any item will make us happy. Give up the pursuit and simplify, because happiness is found in simplicity. It is found through the interactions we have with others. We must always be cognizant that the things in our lives act as walls, blocking us from each other and obstructing what otherwise might be gazes directly into the hearts of one another. If we cannot look past the distractions and connect with each other, we will continue to foolishly pursue happiness as it lies just outside our reach. We all have the capacity to be as satisfyingly happy as those Gambians. We need only shed the pursuit and instead rediscover humanity.